Good afternoon, welcome to the Market Wrap number 121. Thanks for all your comments last week. I see that by reporting what Zupa says, we've stirred a pot of discussion. That's great, so please keep the comments coming. Taking the advice of some of our commenters, I have had a lie down in a quiet room, and this week I will not be recording from a field full of cows and therefore creating something smelly. The wrap did get 4,600 views so far, it's a record for us in 1 week, so well done. Don't forget to please like, subscribe. 71% of people watching this have not subscribed, so please do hit the subscribe button now and you'll hear more of my murmurings and meanderings going forward. This week, to assess the sentiment in the expatriate world, we placed a survey on LinkedIn asking the public what they thought would happen to interest rates over the next year, i.e. how much would they increase by? Is it 4%, 6% or 8%? Of the 7,000 plus people who read it and voted, the view was as follows. 47% thought it would go up by 4%, 6% increase was 35% of the people, and 8% increase by 28% of the people. We then spoke to some offshore mortgage brokers, 5 of them, and this matched or concurred with what they were saying. In addition, their comments were that probably we're looking at a 1.5% rise this year, then a further 1% in smaller increments next year. Now, it's just our view, okay? It's not gospel. It's just what we think will happen, potentially. But I'm not right all the time. If I was, I wouldn't be doing this today. Our view is that this needs to go up as the UK is out of sync with the US in that it's printing money and not increasing rates in line with the Fed, which has stopped printing money and is doing so. And that's one of the elements that's spooking the markets at present, causing the weakness of the pound. This fact we're out of sync with the Fed. In addition, the general mortgage broker view was that mortgage offerings will be back in full in 2 weeks. They will have higher rates and they will require larger deposits. This should not affect really the offshore market too much, as we always have to put down 25 to 30% as the normal, plus we're used to paying higher rates. Their view on the effect of the recession and rising rates, the sentiment one of falls in the over-egged markets, i.e. places that had gone up too much for their own good, and really only because they were cheap, let's buy in Liverpool because it's cheap, let's buy in Newcastle, it's cheap, and so on. Not saying that's just those places. But there wouldn't be falls where underlying fundamentals of investments stood strong, i.e. underwritten by the ties concept, as we call it at APW, transport, infrastructure and employment. Looking at the UK press, The Guardian has reported as follows, to put it into context, and I quote, UK house prices predicted to drop by at least 10% in 2023, as lenders pull mortgage products amid interest rate turmoil, experts forecast there will be a significant fall. They then go on to say house prices in the UK are likely to fall by at least 10% in 2023 as mortgage providers pull deals and raise interest rates to levels not seen since before 2008 financial crisis. So, as I've already said, I think interest rates will go up. The public thinks interest rates will go up, and there will potentially be falls. Apparently nearly 300 mortgage deals have been withdrawn by banks and building societies after the fall in the pound fueled forecasts of a jump in the Bank of England's base rate to nearly 6%. With those offers remaining on the market entailing huge borrowing costs for potential buyers, reducing how much they can pay for properties. The Guardian goes on to say that Ray Bulger, who's a senior mortgage technical manager at John Charcoal, who are a well-known mortgage broker in the UK, that's onshore, not offshore. He told the Radio 4's radio program today, I think we can expect to see a significant fall in house prices, perhaps around 10% next year. Again, in some locations, I think that is going to be the case. The real key factor, really, I think, is that house prices is how much people can afford on their monthly mortgages. You know, the biggest issue is the monthly cost, and with the cost going up a fair way for a lot of people, they're going to have to rethink their plans. Will they buy? If they're going to buy, will they buy as an expensive property? Will they buy a cheaper property, or will they just not do anything? And that's what we've seen offshore, certainly a downgrading a little bit in what people are buying. Analysts at Credit Suisse have warned that higher interest rates, inflation and the risk of recession could lead to house price falls between 10 and 15% next year. And Andrew Wishart, who we've spoken to quite a few times here, a senior property guy at Capital Economics, he predicted the same, 10 to 15%. And the quote was, the rise in market interest rates that has already happened will push up mortgage rates to at least 6% and reduce the size of loans that lenders can offer. The resulting drop in buying power makes a significant drop in house prices inevitable. Okay. Nationwide became the first big lender to increase its fixed rate deals, a 2-year rate rising to 5.59%. 3 years ago, I think it was at about 3%. So that's quite a hefty jump. The increase is the equivalent, if you work it out, of a family with a £500,000 mortgage spending an extra £881 a month on repayments, which is a pretty large amount of money. I'm sure most of the other lenders are going to follow suit, you know, as analysts are saying that interest rates could go as high as 6% next year. So that's according to Mr. Bolger at John Charcoal. He also said, at the moment we aren't going to see many forced sellers because most people have got fixed mortgage rates, and therefore it's going to take time for these costs to filter through. I mean, I believe it is the case that just over 50% of all people in the UK don't have mortgages now. Of the remaining 46%, I think 80% of those have got fixed rates. Okay, so interest rates going up, it'll filter through. It's going to have a big impact on the ability of people to buy. If the increase had been spread over 5 years, then perhaps, you know, it would have been a lot easier and people got used to it. But because it's been shot out of the blue, it's, you know, a lot of people are panicking, and there's a lot of, you know, hysteria in the marketplace. On Tuesday, there were 3,596 residential mortgage deals available, 284 fewer than before the sharp fall in the value of the pound on Monday, according to Moneyfacts. At the end of last year, borrowers had 5,300 deals to choose from, so it's a lot less. It's pretty grim. Again, put it into context, last month I celebrated, I've used that term, I marked 33 years working offshore. And I thought it's worthwhile looking back over the data to just put all this hysteria, to a certain extent, into context. You know, there's been many highs and lows, many challenges, many problems, some victories. And it's important to us to see where we are, because as with the stock market, you know, 30% of the people have never lived through a crash, 30% have forgotten what it was like, and the other 30%, you know, are gearing up for it. So let's just have a look at that. The property market has changed dramatically over the recent years. You know, house prices soaring, rental prices following suit, and the main reason for these changes has been the COVID pandemic, a rise in consumer purchasing ability, help from the government, quantitative easing, overseas money flowing in, and inflation. So, and there's a lot of negatives in there as well as positives. So the value of people's homes have continued to go up. And if you go back to 1980, when I first bought my first property, things have changed dramatically since then. And, you know, if you look at the figures, we can see that it's basically, in 1980, I believe the average house price was about £32,000. It's now £298,000. £298,000. So it's been a great raise, but has it all been smooth sailing? No, it hasn't. Let's look at some of those issues that have happened along the way. Okay, if you started in 1980, home owning became a real aspiration for a lot of people. You know, Margaret Thatcher, she introduced the 1980 Housing Act, which was the right to buy, and this gave people the ability to buy their own homes they're living in, their council houses, at a big discount. I think at one stage the discount was about 44% or something like that. And so people jumped in and they started doing it. You know, the average house price was £23,000, and by 1983, just 3 years later, it was £27,000 according to Nationwide. By 1988, interest rates went up and stayed at an average of 15% for 4 years. Now, how did that happen, and how did we cope? Well, I remember it was a pretty fraught time, but we all got through it, and the house prices continued to go up. You know, during that period, the biggest house price increases meant that the houses went up to £51,000 during that high interest rate period. Then in 1993, we had the biggest recession since the Second World War. You know, average house prices at the beginning of the recession were £57,000. By 1993, they had fallen to £51,000. So that was basically a 10% fall. And that was the biggest recession since the Second World War. By 1996, the market had recovered and the average home was selling for £53,000. So we're seeing similar things that we're talking about now. Okay, in that some houses fell by 20%, or some property during that period, some fell not at all. In 1997 to 1999, interest rates dipped and went to all-time lows of 5.5%, all-time lows. Compare that to now. This also coincided with a change to interest-only mortgages from 1996 onwards, which made it even easier for people to borrow money and pay less off their mortgage than before. So you just do interest only, you never paid it back, and hopefully the price would go up. And that's where things started to go wrong for many people. They borrowed huge amounts of money, then they got into negative equity, and it all started going pear-shaped. Self-certification, you didn't even have to tell the truth about what you're borrowing, and loads of people did that. In 2008, the credit crunch came home to roost, so to speak, and the global financial meltdown occurred. Average house prices fell 15% between January 2008 and May the following year, according to the ONS. It then became much harder to get a mortgage because they actually started looking at what people were earning instead of letting them believe what they said. An average UK house price in 2008 stood at £168,000. But by January 2010, okay, it was back up to 174. And by 2012, it was 193. And I'm not making these figures up, so you know, we can say what you want about me living in a cow field and making manure. You know, these are actual figures. So according to Gov.uk, house prices increased by 10.2% in the year to March 2021, by 9.2% the following year, and now they're up to £292,000. So we're seeing real mirror images of what happened in the 80s, in the 90s, in 2008, where there could well be house prices of 10 to 15% fall, but it's not going to be in all locations. You know, it wasn't then, and it won't be on this occasion. There are strong places out there to buy and where people have bought, and it's still a good idea to do that. It's a fantastic, you know, I did some properties in Dundee last week with an 8% yield, fantastic. It's going to be a bumpy time, but hold on and it'll turn out good. Thanks very much for listening. Do like, do share, do comment, say what you want. I don't have to say that because people do anyway. And if you'd like to hear more about what we do at APW, please click on the link below and we can send you some details, a free ebook. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.